We have to talk offensive line if we're going to talk Michigan. So how close is the front to being set?
I think it's pretty close. I think that when you look at what they've got right now in spring, they're going to add some pieces, or at least a piece in Lawrence Tatar, the Ferris State transfer, grad transfer. So obviously he's not coming to bench ride, but at the same time, I have a hard time seeing where he's going to fit in. It's I think worlds better than it was this time last year, where it was like we're looking for a starting five, and now they're like we're trying to figure out who our best 10 are, and we really feel like we've got some returners there. It sounds like they've moved Evan Link out to the left side after being the starting right tackle. They have done the same with Giovanni El-Hadi, moving from right guard to left guard. He thrived at left guard when he came in for Trevor Keegan for several games in 2022. Craig Crippen returns at center. At the moment, it sounds like Nathan Afobe has really locked down that right guard spot, and Andrew Sprague, who started right tackle for the Alabama game, the ReliaQuest Bowl. I think that he's probably a lock there. So then you kind of start to look at what's the rest of the depth. We've heard a lot of really good things about Cal Poly. Kind of he's kind of a tweener. He could be a guard or he could be a tackle. Brady Norton, he's a little undersized, but what he makes up for what his diminutive stature at 6'3", which is kind of funny to say, like, that's a small dude, but he makes up for that in tenacity and technique and all of those kinds of things. So I think that he's a guy that we've heard a lot about this spring, and hearing from Grant Newsome, he's like, yeah, he's ahead of schedule. He came aboard with the idea. It kind of sounded like he was going to be a project, but he's gotten mentioned from some of the defensive ends and stuff about how he's given them, problems. But then when you start going down the line, that's where you start to kind of have a little bit more questions. Andrew Babalola, the 5-star, sounds like he's still not quite up to the weight that you want him to be. There's fans that want to see him. I think it's kind of ridiculous because you don't really want a true freshman tackle. Like, that's just 5-star or not. That's the one position group. I think when you look at a 5-star, you don't treat them as a first round draft pick in the NFL. You say, like, yeah, they need to sit for at least a year. Ty Haywood's going to be coming in as well. I remember some people in my network at Locked On who were messaging me asking if Ty Haywood was going to start right away. I'm like, probably not. And if you're a Michigan fan, hopefully not, right? Like, you don't want these 5-star tackles starting in year one. Can happen, right? Caden Proctor did it at Alabama, and you had, what is his name, Pettis over at Colorado. You just generally don't want that. But I think that they will be in the mix, and along with Brady Norton, and if Lawrence Tatar will have his say, along with El-Hadi and Nathan Afobe, and then Jake Guarnera at center. I think has really asserted himself, at least in that second rotation. So I think Michigan is pretty close to having like a 9 or 10 deep, which is the type of thing that if you're Michigan, that's how it's kind of worked, right? Like, you knew going from, I know 21 through 23, you had some of the same cast of characters like Trevor Keegan and Zach Zinter. But generally, like, you kind of knew that, like, when one guy would leave, that another guy was going to be able to come in at some point. It became that next man up that you became accustomed to. And where they didn't feel like they had a guy, or a guy wasn't ready, like, they weren't ready to rely on Greg Crippen in that period. So they went and got Olu Oluwatimi and then Drake Nugent to be the center. Now Greg Crippen's running the show, and now that you feel like, okay, if not him, Jake Guarnera is just going to be able to handle business there. And then behind him, Caden Strayhorn. So it's I think that they're starting to kind of build that depth that they just kind of mismanaged over a couple of years. And I think part of that's the transfer portal, guys looking for more opportunity. You saw like Amir Herring and Raheem Anderson and Tristan Bounds depart the program. And I think that that kind of stifled them for a minute, this spring, but they've just got so many bodies now that it feels like, okay, if the guys can actually improve upon, or at least play like they did in their best games. Like, if Evan Link can look like the way he did against Ohio State and Alabama, especially against Alabama being at left tackle, then like, okay, let's go. But those are questions that are going to still take a little while to answer. And they feel like they're in a good spot, but it's, you really kind of don't know until you start playing against people that are wearing an opposing uniform.
Isaiah Hull is all over Michigan football. Wolverines Wire, Locked On Wolverines. You post every day there at Locked On, correct?
Yes. If not every day, I double up one day of the week. A day like today, I'm doing your show. I just need a rest day. So like I'll either double up on like Thursday or Friday or something. You'll get 5 episodes at pretty much any given week.
Very good. Jackson, thank you for the super chat. TJ Ronin, John Diadamo, Mark Rogers, and Isaiah Hole would make the ultimate crossover for this summer. Drewfus, thank you for a super chat asking Isaiah, projecting Earl as a starter. Thoughts?
No, I don't think Earls will start, but he'll be in the rotation, right? He's talking about Shamari Earls, the 4-star cornerback, the guy they flipped right before signing day from Georgia. I wouldn't expect him because you've already got Zeke Berry and Jair Hill entrenched as starters, and I think that they'll continue to use those guys. But Earls is, I think, ahead of schedule. But you have to keep in mind it's still the college game. You can work him in. I think he'll have that Will Johnson type of trajectory. Now, Johnson, out of necessity, was starting by the end of his freshman year, but it was about halfway through his freshman year he started to get that opportunity, starting with the Rutgers game mid-year. But that wasn't really kind of the plan to get him in. It was injuries that precluded that. I think that would probably be the same case with Earls. And certainly outside of those three, I don't necessarily feel that great about Earls necessarily, because not because just because he's a true freshman, right? It takes a minute. I mean, you could even see like Jair Hill was a 4-star, highly thought of, and had some issues in his second year, right? Like not everybody is going to be able to come in and play the college game great straight away. So I think you want to get him acclimated, get him in as that third guy, if not Josiah Edmond, the second year cornerback. But the depth at corner is pretty thin. So I definitely think you'll see him because Michigan wants to have that rotation, but that's the one position on defense that's relatively thin. So I still think you'll see him. I just don't think you'll see him.
Isaiah, before we let you go, you're probably closer to anyone, at least from a media perspective, to Connor Stallions. Do you have any thoughts or are hearing anything about when this investigation will finally come to an end and what's simmering out there in regards to what else the NCAA is trying to dig up?
I think in some ways your guess is as good as mine. I've talked to Connor last week. I mean, usually he's the one asking me, like, what's the word? Like he's not necessarily hearing much, but like what he is hearing is it's kind of like I can't really share, but like it does sound like there's kind of some mixed signals because on one hand you hear like I'm not hearing what you see some of the flame throwing rival accounts putting out there with the quote hammer coming down. I've not heard that from anyone close to the program. Certainly the people like Connor haven't heard that either. It's going to be more personal punishment is what it sounds like, right? Like you're going to see more him getting his punishment, Jim Harbaugh getting his punishment, that type of thing. Chris Partridge certainly sounds like he could be in that. But I think also because Michigan's planning on fighting it, and that's kind of what you saw with the NOA response, that Michigan wasn't going to take this whole thing laying down. They're out there saying, number one, you have no true evidence of any of this. It's all like kind of a testimony of someone that appears disgruntled. And hey, by the way, who is it? Right? They want the NCAA to disclose it. They know who it is, and I think that's kind of put a wrench into some of it, right? Because now it's gotten a little political, and I think that I think that you'll start to kind of get an idea by football season. I don't think it will necessarily come to resolution because I think the NCAA has come so far, and there's just been so much like public what have you with this, and that was kind of why my show it kind of went the way it did, right? Talking to Connor directly, I knew exactly what was actually happening throughout the whole process last year or 2 years ago, right? But people wanted, it got so sensationalized that people started treating this as like the biggest scandal in the history of college sports, and just really isn't. And I know people they think that that's just me being a homer and what have you, but it just really is not. When the actual facts versus, what other programs that there are plenty of other programs that were doing precisely what he's accused of doing, and just kind of why this ended up coming to the forefront. So I don't really know if the NCAA is going to feel like it needs its pound of flesh since this has kind of been litigated publicly compared to what you see with like the Tennessees of the world or you just had the, just revelation that MSU's under NCAA investigation. And then there's like, well, but no one can talk about it. But that's like flies in the face of everything that happened in 2023 for Michigan. So your guess is kind of as good as mine. The only thing I could say is it's not going to be as bad as rival fans want it to be. It probably will be a little bit more than what Michigan fans want it to be as well. But it's not going to be anything earth shattering. I think that you'll start to kind of get an idea mid to late summer as to what it is. And then you will see if both sides can come to that point where both, neither the Michigan nor the NCAA want to fight each other.
Isaiah Hull, Wolverines Wire, and Locked On Wolverines, 5 shows per week. So catch him there. And you get the Twitter handle right there, everyone. There's no excuse for one of the best in the business doing it for Michigan football. So definitely, Isaiah, you're one of our favorite people. No doubt about that. You're a class act. We appreciate your testimony. You're amazing at what you do. And thanks for making time for us.
Absolutely. I got to point out, I love my new dual threat hat here because this is technically a Master's hat. It's Amen Corner.
That's nice.
But when I saw it,
Well done.
I was like, well, that fits into my brand,
Perfect
the
time
Amen,
of year.
Yes. Yeah. So it's kind of perfect because it's
love it.
Dual purpose.
Love it. Good to see you, Isaiah.
Yeah, you too.
Thanks for
having
being
me
here.
on.
Absolutely.